Welcome to ET with GOTB. Lots of cup chat this week, so from Subway to the FA to Europe. So let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. If you hear the light pitter-patter of feet, it is our little rabbit over there. He sees that we're recording and immediately starts running around the carpet near the room in the hope that he'll get some attention. But not right now. Our attention is on you guys, don't you worry. But just in case you hear little pitter-patters through your headphones, that's what it is. Welcome back to the latest episode. Plenty to run through, but as ever, this is your weekly reminder to subscribe wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts so that you do not miss an episode. Also follow us on Girls on the Ball across all of the platforms. What's the one I remembered this week, Soph, that I'd totally forgotten about? Threads. We're on that as well. Didn't realise. I was like, what are you posting on now? Thought you'd done Blue Sky or whatever it's called, and no, we're on Threads as well. So if you're there, we're there. Let's tie us all together. Okay, we've got lots coming up. This week we are bringing you football from all over. We've got midweek fixtures. We have Champions League draw that happened on Friday. Then we had the FA Cup clashes across the weekend. Are you fully recovered? 5 games in a week?
Very tired.
Are you tired?
Yeah.
This is going to be a great episode, guys. Promise.
Yeah.
Sophie's
energy
knackered,
levels.
but we're grand. Okay, so we will run through the fixtures. We'll pick out some wider points to touch on from the games that we attended. We will pick out a player of the week, and then Sophie's spotlight, which I'm super proud of naming. And every week she looks like that when I tell her about it.
No, I've got it. It's all good.
Sure you do. Anyway, that is normally a tactic or a lineup or a tweak or a passage of play that little Sophie over here thinks, I like that. I'm going to shine a spotlight on it. And then she tells you guys about it. Anyway, whatever takes your fancy. You have free reign on that one. Okay. We have I'm looking forward to the Champions League because there are some spicy fixtures that we need to... Anyway, we'll get to it. I'm now spoiling it. It's normally Sophie's job, but I'm spoiling it this week. We'll start back, rewind. Subway Cup. No. Semifinals. It gets you every time. Surely by the final that won't make you laugh
We
anymore.
did actually have Subway on Saturday.
Oh my God, we did.
Yeah, we treated ourselves.
It was the only bloody place we could find. And where were we?
Wellington. Telford.
Not even Telford. This is what I don't get about clubs, right? You've got Wolves, not in Wolves, playing in allegedly Telford FC, not in Telford. It's in Wellington. I mean, lads, can you just put it in the place where you say?
But we did treat ourselves to a Subway, we were very on brand for the week that it was in.
We were. Although they didn't have the bread we like or the sauce we like, but
no,
whatever.
I don't know what they've done to honey mustard.
What has happened to honey mustard? That is a question. Do you know what? We should ask Subway.
Yeah.
You know those people before the games?
Bring back honey mustard sauce.
If we were a sauce, we'd be honey mustard before you ask. All right, semi-finals. If you were a sauce, what would you be? I mean, I don't know where this is going. Let's carry on. The meat in our sandwich this week, Sophie, is Chelsea versus West Ham and Arsenal versus Man City again. Chelsea 2, West Ham 0. JRK and Nuskin with the goals there. And then Arsenal 1, Manchester City 2. We had Fowler scoring a brace and Mariano with the penalty, right?
Yes, that's
good.
Right.
Okay. All I remember is getting a great shot of Blackstenius winning the penalty and thinking, if Arsenal win, I'm going to use that.
And then they didn't.
Thanks.
So you couldn't.
So that photo's gone up on Flickr and no one will ever see it. Anyway, the thing you always say is that the team that loses, if they're playing close together, the team that loses often learns the most. And what happened?
They did.
Man City lost to Arsenal.
Well, more often than not. Even in the Chelsea-West Ham one, when you think about where West Ham were when they played in the league...
Oh, they're blown away.
3 weeks ago or whatever. And the difference... And maybe part of it was Chelsea, but I don't think you can discredit West Ham for the improvements that they made and the increase in intensity that they put in. And I do really like the work rate of their front three as well. So I do think both showed that when you play sides close together, the losing side does learn an awful lot. And I think many coaches have said it before as well, that if you lose the first one, then you probably... I don't know, whether you take your foot off the gas a little bit, or... It's not complacency, because I wouldn't say they're complacent, but maybe you go... Just there's like this subconscious thing of where you're like, we've got this rather than...
Maybe. That's kind of what I felt like from Arsenal. What happens when you play each other like 4 times in 12 days? I don't know. We'll find out.
That goes out of the window.
We'll get to that. We'll find out. Can we talk about the funny thing about the West Ham Chelsea game at the end with Rianne? And I really rate this from Rianne Skinner. But post-match, when Chelsea made a change to their back line...
So yeah, Chelsea were for... playing 4 at the back in the first half, and Ashley Lawrence got a yellow card quite early on, and she was pretty lucky at the end of that first half not to get a second one. She fouled Shakira Martinez, I think, deep in the corner, and got a talking to from the ref. And, you know, if she hadn't just got booked, and if it was the second half, I think that would have been a second yellow. But yeah, so she got away with that one. And so Chelsea, early in the second half, switched formation. So they took off Ashley Lawrence. At the moment, she's currently the only right back they have because Lucy Bronze is injured.
Yes.
So they took her off and went 3 at the back, which you don't see Chelsea do all that often. And Brianne Skinner did say in post...
I really rate this.
Just stop laughing. That she was very proud that they were... Not many teams forced Chelsea to adjust their style. So she was quite proud that they managed to
take
do
it.
that.
You take your wins.
But... No, I mean, I think West Ham, to be fair to them, did pretty well, and they worked really hard, and they gave Chelsea some stuff to think about.
Martinez is exciting, isn't she?
She is really exciting, and I think she. I think they also that front three of Asai, Martinez, and Ueki, are really got a lot of building chemistry between them, and something to be good about, excited about. Their press is good. They were, since the second goal, they seemed to wake up and really press Chelsea's back line, and Chelsea just couldn't really get back into the flow of things in the second half, especially. It was quite funny.
I rate it. You take those.
You find it very amusing.
You go into that dressing room after the game and you tell them, look what we made Chelsea do.
I did ask Sonia the same question, and she did say that it was for a variety of reasons.
It's fine. It's because of
West Ham. It was because of Ashley Lawrence being on a yellow.
It's because of West Ham. They hammered them.
Anyway.
Telling you. Anyway, I really enjoyed that. Anyway, as I said, you were right about teams meeting each other twice when it came to Arsenal. Now, I want to ask you, we haven't had a final without 2 of Arsenal, Man City or Chelsea since the 2020-2021 Cup final. And then before that, 2016. Is the format working? Tell the listeners what you think.
So I'm probably one of a few who think it's fine. And I do get it why people get annoyed that Arsenal, Man City... Well, this year, Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea came in at the quarter-final stages because of the Champions League. Their participation in it.
Arsenal didn't last year.
But that's the thing. Arsenal last year won it and they went all the way through from the group stages. So it just really depends on the Champions League. But I do get why they're not playing those matches. I think the group stage, we kind of oscillated between a group stage or a knockout, and then we went back to a group stage for years in the League Cup. And I know people like to put the League Cup down. It is an important competition, and it's not just about the silverware, in my opinion. Those group stages give teams game time, games against different opposition, and maybe the format needs to change in terms of the north-south divide, so that sometimes groups are purely Championship or purely WSL, and you could mix that up a bit, or maybe you could start bringing in some National League teams as well. So there's the participants or the formation of the draw could change, but I think the general idea of having a group stage through to the final is good.
You also spoke before about a plate competition for the teams that don't get out of the group.
So a bit I don't know really what it's like now in Europe, but in the old days, when you were in the Champions League and you finished bottom of the group, you dropped straight into the Europa League so that you continued to get playing European football. And I think it's the same kind of idea, that if you drop out of the group stage, maybe those teams could drop into a plate. So it means that one of the big problems in the women's game is that international players play way too much football, and then teams like Crystal Palace or Leicester or a Championship side plays way too little football. So it could kind of address that problem by having that plate competition.
So it will be Manchester City versus Chelsea. I remember that one. Last time they played against a cup final was in Plough Lane, wasn't it, in Wimbledon, and Manchester City won. And it was basically dark. That's all I remember from the photos.
The photos were
they were dreadful.
Impossible.
But yeah, is that the last time Man City won a cup?
That was the last time, and the last time they were in it. So
okay, well, they did do better against Arsenal, I have to say. Arsenal didn't really turn up. They weren't the kind of same intense Arsenal that you saw when they played them the previous week. But I think Man City kind of had their number a little bit.
Yeah, I think both sides changed things.
Carolyn started.
Yeah, Carolyn, she's rapid.
Super.
Absolutely rapid. But I think both sides changed things, and it just so happened that on the day the changes for Man City worked better than the changes for Arsenal. I think he put Mary Fowler up front rather than Viv, so Viv dropped deeper, and I think we saw in that game exactly how she can influence that play. And I understand the argument that she is really good as a number 9. Of course she is.
Well, Fowler scored twice, so.
But I do understand also why many managers and Viv herself like to drop deep and influence play in that respect. So I think on the day they got it right. It's actually fast becoming my favourite fixture in the women's game, City Arsenal, because I think the margins between them are so close that on any given day one team will win, and then the next time the other team will win, and you can't call it between the two. Whereas sometimes I think even with like Chelsea Arsenal at the moment, more often than not Chelsea do win it, or Chelsea Man City at times. Maybe not so much last season, but you do think Chelsea have the more quality to win it, whereas I think there's a parity between where the squads of Arsenal and City are at.
Sure. All right, we're going to move on to the FA Cup, the Adobe Women's FA Cup. Going to run through the results. I'm not going to go through all of them because there was like 8 games. We did get to 3, which I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, we did.
Aston Villa 3, Brighton 2. Wolves 0, Manchester United 6. Rugby 0, Liverpool 2. Palace 2, Newcastle 0. Arsenal 2, London City Lionesses 0. Manchester City 3, Leicester 1. Portsmouth 0, Sunderland 2. Chelsea 4, Everton 1. No hugely surprising results, sadly. No cup sets. But rugby came close. Oh my God.
They did such a good job.
We were prepping for the Chelsea game because we were working that one. And I was like on my phone the whole time. And every so often I go to Sophie, 50 minutes, half time, it's 0-0. 50 minutes, it's 0-0. 75, 80. Oh, they scored. Yeah.
They did really well. And I think I've said it before. I really, really rate Lee Birch. We've seen what he did way back when. Not way back then when, but a while
Feels
ago.
like it.
I mean, it was when we, It
when we were young.
Feels like years ago.
Energetic.
I mean, it was years ago. But when he took over Millwall, and then when he was manager of Yeovil,
Yes.
I think we saw what he was, and then London Bees, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And I think at all of those clubs, he really instilled a really good philosophy of what he wanted as a manager. And I think Millwall went on that ridiculous unbeaten run for a long time in the WSL2 at the time, I think. So
I love that you look at me like I'm like, yeah, they did, yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I do really rate him as a coach, and he obviously got his game plan pretty right, I think, on the day. They were resilient, they defended really well, they kept Liverpool at the bay, and actually the goal from Mary Herbinger was an absolute worldie, a screamer. So for that to, kind of be the one that brings you down, as it were, I think you can kind of go, yes, that was a real moment of quality, and that's probably where the difference is. And the same with Wolves and United, it was quality that was the real difference, and obviously international teams with professional footballers are going to be the quality.
Yeah. So the games we covered were Villa-Brighton, Wolves versus United, and then Chelsea versus Everton. So Villa-Brighton was quite an exciting one, actually, quite end-to-end, particularly towards the end. I did enjoy the BBC writing about how Aston Villa had made a comeback, and I think they were behind for about 70 seconds.
Technically comebacks were really over-egging the
Brighton
comeback
scored in
side.
the 45th minute, and then Aston Villa scored in 47 plus. They really weren't behind for that long. I wouldn't classify it as a classic comeback, but it was exciting. Nikita Parris did very well. We thought Madison Haley was great, but Brighton just a bit doesn't really feel like they're trusting the process in the way they were at the beginning of the season. They're hesitant. They kind of overcomplicate things a little bit, which we spoke about this in our live, was very much demonstrated by the debate that had to be had between Lusada and Cankovic for every dead ball situation. Whether it was a free kick or a corner, there had to be a long discussion. And it culminated when there was 3 of them over the ball. I think Caraboli was involved in this as well. Free kick from about 25 yards out. And they had this really in-depth conversation about what was going to happen. And then they did a 1 step over, 2 step over. And then I think it was Lusada tried to claim that the Aston Villa wall had broken. The ref was like, no, it hasn't. Cankovic took the shot, hit the wall, came to nothing. And I'm like, this was just...
It reminded me, without the successful end product, it really reminded me of the Ellen White Notts County goal.
Maybe the bit before, if you remember that little discussion they had.
No, but that was where they play acted an argument between the team. This wasn't quite the same thing, but it was kind of that kind of theatrical side of things, and it really didn't work.
But it just kind of encapsulated Brighton at the moment, where they're just a bit hesitant and unsure at times, and they just take a second too long with passes and to make decisions, and they're getting caught out a bit too often at the back.
I think they have their structure behind the ball or out of possession isn't great, and I think they're really prone to mistakes, passing out errors, but also because they obviously have a very clear attacking mentality, they get caught too often out of position, and it allows teams like when you have a player with the pace of Chastity Grant or Kirsty Hansen and Rachel Daly on the end of it, then you've got problems because you are on the back foot and you have to constantly chase after them.
It was an exciting FA Cup clash nonetheless, because it felt like squeaky bum time at the end. We thought we were going to get another goal from Brighton and we were going to go to extra time. I
will say Michelle Agerman added so much to Brighton in the second half.
And a bit earlier.
I'm not sure why he doesn't try the trio of Paris, Agerman and Hayley. I really rate Hayley as well. I think she's an absolute baller in terms of what she does and her work rate.
And her defensive
side,
well.
But it's her attacking play that really drives them forward. And I would have loved to see more of the 3-pronged attack going at Villa's defence, which got shaky because as soon as they took Jordan Nobbs off, they lost their structure in midfield.
I feel like they kind of went 3-1, we're grand, we'll take them off, we'll be all right, and it then got a bit hairy. But Natalia, first kind of FA Cup experience, very much an FA Cup clash. It rained, the pitch was shite. It got very hairy at the end and it felt like a proper FA Cup fixture.
Yeah.
Everyone was roaring on the sideline and in the stands and, the ref, all of this stuff. So it was very dramatic, but she seemed to enjoy her first experience and they're into the next round, so that's all that matters. We then went across up slightly to the left, to Wolverhampton, not Wolverhampton. Telford, not Telford. Where were we?
I mean, it was Telford, but Wellington's just outside of Telford.
Yes, for this one, wonderful atmosphere, proper FA Cup clash. Reminded me of the Lewis Manchester United clash in the 5th round a number of years ago. A little bit more relaxed this time because I wasn't floor manager and telling them when to kick off and all sorts. It was very stressful. But yeah, they had a great crowd. What did they get? Did they say
over 5,000? It was a new record for them. Really, really good atmosphere.
Noisy.
Noisy. A big shout out to the United fans as well.
Yes.
Who they dished out these signs, obviously saying kind of like "We care," like harking back to the comments from Alan Brazil in midweek. So a bit of a show of, I guess, resistance or solidarity from them.
There were two kind of bits from this that made me feel really FA Cup-y magic, and that was Mara Griffiths getting a debut, first of all, 17 years old, coming on in the 81st minute and scoring not one but 2 goals, and then the comments from the manager at the end in the huddle about how proud they should be and how in 10-15 years time when they come back together this was going to be a night that they talked about, and I just thought that was really lovely.
And I think it's easy to go, oh well, United ran them over 6-0. But what Wolves don't have, I think they have just a handful of players on paid contracts. The rest of them work elsewhere and come and play football. So I think that you just have to remember where they are. Yes, they are backed. They have a Premier League name behind them, but they don't get nearly the investment that they need, and they're definitely not a full-time outfit. So I think that's where the difference in maybe the quality comes in, or certainly the endurance. I did feel like the last 3 goals were more endurance-based and quality-based.
100%.
Whereas the first 20-30 minutes of the game, you really felt, not that they were in it, I think I always felt that
100%.
United were going to win the game, but they were battling hard. There were some sliding challenges. Anna Morfett got that big challenge on Melvin Millard.
They were so disciplined
and
switched on.
Yeah, stuff like that. There was one big one on Grace Clinton as well. And then they weren't afraid to break either. And I thought Amber Hughes did some really good centre-forward play, as did Destiny.
One of the issues was
but the problem with when you're in those positions is that you break and you have no support.
Yes.
And
that was tricky.
That's hard to deal with, but I thought they did pretty well. Gave a pretty good account of themselves given the circumstances.
It reminded me of when England, back when we didn't have a Nations League and would beat teams 10-0, and you'd go into those post-match press conferences, and despite everyone at home saying this is ridiculous, we should never be playing those games, it's an embarrassment, the managers of the other teams were saying, up to 7-0, we were pretty pleased with our performance, we were carrying out what we wanted to do, we were doing X, Y, Z. Obviously their goals in the match can be so different to what England's would be, for example, and I feel like that would be a similar thought around how they performed. They probably say the first 3 goals right, we can actually live with, you know, they were quality. And then you could probably look at the last three and say we were knackered, or the discipline goes, or the fitness levels goes. And
but I do want to say there's been some comments about the keeper.
Have there?
Is it Bay Thomas, I think, who, about her performance and how it's a sort of endemic in the women's game.
Were they people who just watched the highlights?
Yes, probably.
Right, great. How helpful.
But also, all I was going to say was, in all politeness, just bog off, because there is so much context behind the team.
Also, she had a great first half.
She had a great first half. She made some big saves in that first half. Yes, she got a foot to Ella Toon's goal, and she'll be annoyed at herself that she couldn't keep that out. The real one was the second one from Mara Griffiths, I think, that went through her legs.
Yeah.
But that will be the one that really annoys her. But all in all, like, she didn't have a disastrous
Absolutely not. It would have been, could have been more.
There is so much, like, context behind the game.
Right, that's an example of people who've just watched the highlights and not bothered to actually watch the match. So maybe, you know, keep your opinions to yourselves. Chelsea march on. We did that one as well. Did it feel like a 4-1 game?
So this was funny because I had to write talking points for The Guardian last night, and I had a talking point on Wolves and a talking point on Chelsea. And I logged onto the BBC website and I looked at the stats, and it said, until today, it said Chelsea had 38 shots created, 22 on target. And I was a bit like...
Did I miss that?
Oh, this was my thing. When I was writing the talking point, I was a bit like, I'm not sure they did, but maybe like I trust the statisticians and the analysts. So
well, now I don't.
No. Well, it's changed now.
Oh,
it was
has it?
22 shots created and 11 on target.
Okay.
So this is what my point. This is my story. Is that when I was writing the thing, I was like, I'm sure it wasn't that one-sided, but maybe I just was dreaming or forgot things, or
even Sonia said it
because even Sonia said what?
She said it didn't feel like a 4-1 game.
Yeah. So anyway, when I was writing,
where'd you pull that number from?
Was from that BBC?
No, not you. Them. Was that Everton's possession or something?
I don't know what happened. Anyway, went back on it today, realised that it wasn't actually that, and yes, I was right in thinking it was absolutely wild to have those kind of statistics. It didn't feel like that kind of game. Chelsea were very much in control.
Yeah.
Everton will have a bit of something to say about the first penalty that got Chelsea back into the game, because it was outside the box.
It was outside the box.
So I think they can be annoyed at that, not because I think Chelsea wouldn't have ultimately probably gone on to win the game.
Sure, but
letting them back in at that particular time in the match.
After an Olympico, by the way, Sarah Holmgard, thank you very much. We didn't get you celebrating because we were facing the bloody goal, because why would we catch you celebrating? I did get a great shot of the goal going in though, so I'm quite pleased with that. But Olympico, loves it. That's the second Olympico I've seen live in my life. I saw Katie's
at Canada.
Yeah. So well done. But yes, I agree. Raging 2 weeks in a row now, penalty given outside the box. I think they can be pretty annoyed about the second penalty. Now the thing is, it's very hard to see from the replays, but what Courtney Brosnan was saying was was it Lucy Graham was stood on, right, and she needed treatment. The other thing Lucy Hope was saying, the lino hadn't caught up, was another thing that Courtney Brosnan was saying. The ref took so long.
Yeah, there was so much indecision.
Neither of them knew. Then she pointed to the spot. Then she went over to the lino, who'd not gestured in any way.
I don't think she even pointed to the spot. That's on the replay. I don't think she even did give the penalty until she went to the...
Which is, so I can understand being annoyed. Courtney Brosnan was our agent.
Yeah, I think in those moments, if you're not sure, you can't give it. And neither of them looked particularly sure. I would have to see the other angle, and we don't have that to decide whether it was a penalty or not.
But arguably we got the view that the ref would have got, because the ref wouldn't have been in front of them. So the ref would have seen it from behind. So that's the point of, if you can't be sure, you shouldn't give it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I can understand being annoyed. But like you said, Chelsea were in control and deserved the win. So yes, as many days, weeks, Sonia One-Pastor's team have stepped into the next round. A final and a quarter-final in a week is not bad. I also wanted to shout out Bunny Shaw. She came on as a substitute in City's game, which they won, and she scored. She was the victim of racist and misogynist abuse on social media following their game against Arsenal in the league last week, and due to that she missed the Subway Cup semi-final in order to protect her mental health. Obviously, really shocking to hear that. Disgusting behaviour. And really gutting to hear that she felt she had to step away from the football pitch because of it. Huge credit to her for prioritising her mental health. Really respect that. But horrible to think that someone found themselves in that position. There's absolutely no room for that kind of thing, not only in football, but generally in society. So to see her come back out on the pitch, to see her score a goal.
Trademark header as well.
Yeah, was lovely to see, and really hope she's getting all the support she needs at her club as well.
Pretty sure she wore the armband.
Love that.
At one stage as well.
Love that. Yeah, so, big respect to you, Bunny. Looking ahead, Soph, now we've got Villa, United, Liverpool, Palace, Arsenal, City, Sunderland and Chelsea left in the draw. Any draw you particularly like to see or not see? And I know we're all going to say, please don't draw Manchester City, Chelsea.
Yeah, because it would make it 5 times in the space of about 15 days or something if they did get them each other. So that would be a bit ridiculous.
Do you know what I'm feeling in me Walters?
City, Chelsea.
No, actually. Chelsea, Villa.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
It's random.
I can't explain me Walters.
I
It's an
don't
Irish
have
thing.
any Waters, and also your Waters are sometimes wrong, so I wouldn't trust them anyway.
It was unnecessary. It's an Irish thing. You don't just get to say it's wrong. You wait now. If Chelsea draw Aston Villa, can I just say I'm going to clip this up?
I would hope. I don't know. There's a bit of me that you kind of want Sunderland to get the big clash, but then also at home, so they get to host it. Mm-hmm. But then there's part of me that goes, let them just have,
Who's good to get?
Probably no one. But Sunderland, Chelsea.
Also, is this Palace's first time through to quarterfinals?
Yes, history making.
Well done.
So yeah, I'm undecided about what I want to see. I'm going to be happy with whatever happens.
Okay.
Just
unless it's Chelsea, Man City. Yeah. Okay, that is happening Tuesday, the 11th of February, on Adobe Women's FA Cup YouTube channel at 6:30. I don't know when you're listening to this. It might have already happened by the time you actually get around to listening to this. In which case, that was dated, and I hope the draws were good. All right, give me your player of the week, please.
I am going to go with. You shouted her out earlier, and I know she was only on the pitch for a short amount of time, but Mara Griffiths, just as such a special moment for her. Welsh international. I think she came on for Wales against Ireland in that first leg.
Do we need to bring that up again? Was that necessary?
But she's a really good young prospect. She's 17 years old. I think she came to United last season. So she's been in the under-21s for about a year now and made the step up. And to see her take it with both hands and get those 2 goals, I don't think, on the look on her face, I don't think she could quite believe what was happening to her in those last minutes. So really special moment for her.
I got none of it. Dark pitch, chaotic first goal, lots of bodies in the way, and then I saw her peeling away with about 6 people in front of her, and I was like, that's who scored, brilliant. I'm going to get the back of her shirt if I'm lucky. But no, that's a good shout out. Okay, highlight of the week.
So I was thinking about this.
Sophie's spotlight of the week.
You need to change that.
I know, yeah,
I do. Now you come up with a name for it. You can't just keep calling it highlight. Anyway, I was thinking about this, and I was actually going to go for Bunny's goal.
Yes.
Against... Well, I had to. Well, I'm going to shout out Nelly Lasseter's goal because I thought that was brilliant.
Yes.
But Bunny's goal against Leicester. I know there's the narrative around the the emotion of it all and everything.
Was special.
But for me, it's just her positioning, and I'm pretty sure Alba Fagino put in that cross to that post about 10 times in the game. And before Bunny Shaw came on, there was no one making the run to the far post. It was exactly the same cross that Mary Fowler had run onto against Arsenal. She just kept putting the ball into that position, and there was just no one there for Manchester City half the time. So I think as soon as Bunny came on...
Bunny to the rescue.
She just knows exactly where to be in those positions, and she just stands herself there and waits for the cross to come in. And when you've got a deliverer like Fagino, I just thought it was kind of the piece of the jigsaw that maybe at times been missing for City over the last couple of weeks.
Aren't we lucky she's in our league?
Yeah.
Very lucky. Good one, I like that. All right, Champions League quarterfinals happened, and they were dramatic. These are the quarterfinals: Real Madrid versus Arsenal, Bayern versus Lyon, Wolfsburg versus Barcelona, and Manchester City versus Chelsea. Now, as much as I didn't want 2 English teams facing each other, it A, means we can cover the 3 teams quarterfinals. Selfish, I know. And it B, means we will definitely have an English team in the semi-final. So that's good.
Yep.
Right. There are some very tasty fixtures. Each of them, I think, are juicy and are hard to call. And, they were talking about it on DAZN, who's the underdog. I don't really feel like they're all overdogs. What's the opposite of an underdog? A favourite? Where did underdog come from? They're all overdogs.
Are they?
I think they're all pretty bloody good.
I mean, they're strong teams, but I do think there are
Who's
teams...
the underdog? Manchester City?
And I would say also Arsenal. Maybe not, well... Yeah, I'd say actually...
When you compare them to the quarterfinals last year, we had some proper underdogs.
Yeah.
It just feels weird to call any of these guys underdogs.
It's just for me, like, for Manchester City and Arsenal, we obviously see them as these big powerhouses over here in terms of they're challenging for trophies and fighting for titles and always in the conversation in and thereabout. But actually on the European stage, they're not. They are in terms of name, but they're not. They haven't been in the conversation for many years. I know Arsenal got to a semi-final, probably a bit by surprise.
2005?
2 years ago.
2005?
What?
We're not going to talk about them winning, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. No, but I mean...
Jesus, the Arsenal fans will come for us.
I'm talking about in the near
I'm just covering
past.
our Arsenal,
Okay.
Sophie.
In the near past,
yes,
they haven't always been in the conversation, whereas Chelsea, you could say, have been pretty much a powerhouse in Europe for a while. I know they had that blip year, but other than that... so I would say they're kind of... Maybe we don't quite know how they'll shape up in the quarterfinals against kind of the big dogs. I do think Arsenal will be happy with their draw. I would be pretty confident that you have a chance of getting through against Real Madrid.
my facials during this.
Rachel, have you seen Real Madrid play football?
I have, yeah. I've been there so many fucking times, Sophie.
Yeah.
I'm sick of that bloody
They're
stadium.
not that good.
Yeah, well, have you seen Arsenal play football?
Yes.
Sometimes. Because sometimes they're great, and then other times they can't find the back of the net.
I do think Arsenal have enough quality to get past Real Madrid.
Good. I'm glad, because I'm not the confident one of the pair ever, so this is why
Especially
you're around.
over two legs.
I'd been looking at that going, they all look terrifying. No thanks, can I just have a bye? But that doesn't happen.
No, I think Arsenal will be quite content with that compared to what they could have got.
Sure.
I think...
It's not Barcelona, so...
I think Lyon and Bayern is a pretty interesting one as well because we don't really know kind of where Bayern maybe are at, whether they'll get Georgia Stanway back. We saw bits of them in, like, glimpses of them in the group stage, how good they could be, but then we also saw the bad side of them in the group stage. So I think it's quite...
Listen, Pernilla Harder is still top scorer, I believe, in Champions League, so should be raring to go.
They have so much quality. And
Didn't
I
they
think
miss it last year?
I think they'll... Yeah.
And
I think they'll be... coming up.
Do you remember, this is a weird memory to share on a podcast, do you remember after the PSG game last year, no, it was Paris FC, one of them, and we were in a nice little restaurant quite late at night with Susie, having looked at the sparkly Empire State Building.
Oh yeah, we went on a date.
We went on a trio date.
Yeah.
It's weird. And we had some lovely wine and food, and we watched the last of those few games of, like, it's Bayern, it's PSG, it's PSG, it's Bayern, it's somebody else, and it was like all over the place. It was dead exciting. Yeah, that didn't live up to it this year, did it? But all three English teams are through. That is the main thing. So we will be going to Madrid again. Yay! To be fair, though, we could have ended up in bloody Wolfsburg.
I would take Madrid over Wolfsburg, to be honest. There's more to do in Madrid.
Although I really want to go to the Allianz in Bayern.
I know, but...
I ended up going to that bloody training ground. That's all I got.
No, if Bayern win and Arsenal get through semi-finals.
If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a lovely time. What's the end of that? Anyone? Anyway. Okay, any other business? We've got the Lionesses squad, which will be announced on Tuesday, the 11th, for the upcoming Nations League matches. And again, depending on when you're listening to this, that's probably old news and you already know. But that's quite exciting. Are you going to that?
I'm going in the morning. I'm going to be intrigued to see who she goes with.
Do you know what I'm excited about? The Irish team, they said, admin thinks there's going to be a new player, is what they said on Instagram. So keep an eye out for that one. Who's Conor Ward brought in?
Well, they've had quite a few retirements. And
if anyone's going to sniff out someone with a bit of Irish heritage, it's Carla Ward, and get them in there. So, I reckon.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be... Lionesses squad is going to be interesting too because no Georgia Stanway. You imagine Grace Clinton will come into that 8 role, maybe Jess Park, but I do think there'll still be... We might see an extended squad. We might see Ruby Mays come back in again. I think she was so crucial in that goal for Nelly Lass. I think she caused the drive forward, so that could be interesting. So, yeah, intrigued. Maybe call up for Beth in England.
Maybe.
I live in hope.
We will clip them all up. You've said it numerous times, Sophie. It's just going to be a montage of you being like,
and
Beth
I'll be
in England,
complete.
Beth in England, Beth in England.
I'll just keep banging the Beth in
So
England
smug.
drum for a while.
Okay, coming up, we've got some WSL fixtures this weekend.
Or maybe Jordan Nobbs.
I'm doing Chelsea-Everton again.
Yes.
Bloody hell. Deja vu. How did that happen? You're doing West Ham versus Brighton. I think that's quite an exciting one, actually, to see how they get on. Brighton,
Yes.
yeah. I'm intrigued by that.
Although I hope that the weather is much better than the last time I was in Dagenham.
Well, listen, I want to know if your little thought about the team that loses does better the second time round will happen for Chelsea Everton. Also, we never talked about the fact that Manchester City and Chelsea are now going to play each other 4 times in 12 days.
I mean, I mentioned it earlier.
No, but like I said, I was going to go into more in depth. How does that work? Does the team who loses the first time do better the second time, and then the second time it goes vice versa and the other team wins?
This is a very scatterbrained podcast.
I'm very intrigued about how that's going to happen and who's going to benefit.
Sorry for all the watchers, but
you don't want to be the team that loses all the games. That'd be shite, wouldn't it? Could you imagine 4 times and you learn nothing? I'm intrigued. That's a wild one. Oh God, could you imagine if they get FA Cup? Stop it. Anyway, listen. It is, of course, the North London Derby this weekend as well. Arsenal are hosting at the Emirates. I believe they've already sold 50,000 tickets.
Yeah,
did I imagine
that? Like 4 days ago, so it's probably more.
Listen,
than that now.
Nobody cares. Do they? We will go live on Saturday. We have a rare day off, so do join us. I really enjoyed our chat on Sunday morning. That was a bit mad.
How can we do it from this time?
And it was a great opportunity. I got a couple of rants off my chest. It was quite fun.
Take them on a tour of the Folkestone sites.
We could take it down to Folkestone. We could take it to a champagne bar that we like to frequent because we're bougie like that. It's a lighthouse. It's fun. Don't know how good the signal is. It might be weird. We could try it. We'll see. Weather depending. Otherwise, we will be back with our next episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball early next week. We'll chat to you then.